Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Sonic 3, or Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Following this franchise from its beginnings from a just straight up family movie with Sonic in it, or kind of the original Masters of the Universe where they all come to Earth. And in this one, in the first one it was with Sonic. The second one was sort of related to that. And this one is kind of its own thing. I think, if anything, this is probably more a product of movie continuity that I've seen outside of the MCU and done well than anything. And it really, really works. It very much understands that you as the audience understand who Tails is, who Knuckles is, who Donut Lord is, who Pretzel Lady is, who Robotnik is. You get all of that. And so let's waste literally very little narrative time building that up. Like, there is some, you could go into this film blind, I guess. Why would you? But you could. And it works, but it very much relies on the fact that it does not have to introduce Sonic to you. It does not have to introduce any of those characters. The only two it has to introduce is Shadow and the older Robotnik, and it takes advantage of that. In fact, I think this is sort of, and actually an improvement over especially the last one. These are still family movies. This is a big Saturday morning cartoon. I mean, I would honestly say this is very sad AM kind of Sonic kind of thing. This feels like a Saturday morning cartoon through and through, but it feels like a movie franchise that was building to this, and have 4 Sonic characters run around on screen, and you're not like, what the fuck is going on? They built this kind of perfectly to this moment, so they can almost, fight Shadow. I don't know if that was the point for director Jeff Fowler, but he actually did this really well, because that is what it is. If that's what you want this to be. Now, this isn't mind-blowing. It doesn't change cinema. It's not, I don't think it would change anything, really. It's not like one of the best movies of the year or anything, but for what I want this to be, what you want this to be, and what this should be, it works really, really well, actually. I think it's kind of shocking how perfectly built this was. There's no weird side avenues into someone being a bridezilla in a kid's movie, which is like some weird moral shit you're putting on there. None of that stuff. Just straight up Sonic adventure with Tails and Knuckles and Shadow and Robot. That's what you want from this, is what you're getting, and they're very direct in that. And I actually thought that was really smart and really interesting, actually, in terms of video game cinema. This might be kind of more of what we're going to see going forward, which is, getting more into the lore of this stuff and expanding on it. We only have one Mario movie right now. We haven't had that many sequels of actual video game movies. Everyone's starting at the first one, and Sonic is at the end of, I guess, this trilogy, although it just sounds like it's a series and not a real, it's not like The Godfather and there's a thematic thing at the end and stuff. It's just like a continuing series of movies. But I do think it's kind of just surprising how smart they were at building this franchise. But much like how comic books were, I feel like when the MCU was starting, I would be like, oh my god, I can't believe they brought continuity, like comic book continuity. They brought video game continuity into this, and I think it works really well, where no one's going in and be like, what's a Shadow? Who's a Knuckles? What? You don't feel that at all. And they're, maybe the MCU and all that stuff, started that bridge before they got there, but they're the first to do it with video game movies. And when we get to Super Mario Brothers sequels and stuff like that, and we'll see, various more and more characters, and we don't have to worry about doing the bare essentials of who are the characters that people would remember, and more getting into more opportunities for Sonic and seeing, the mid-credits and all that stuff. Feels like we're going to go more and more in that. Now, I think that can get extremely convoluted with Sonic, as I read those comics with my daughter. As for right now, it all really works, and I think it shows how fun and awesome that world can be. And I think Sonic is more of a love letter to the kind of the world of Sonic the Hedgehog than the other 2 movies have been at all. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is about Shadow, who voiced by Keanu Reeves, who has, I guess, escaped from his prison or whatever by Yorma from Lonely Island, who doesn't come back and isn't really involved in this. He's the guard. The Shadow gets out, and as Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails are living with Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady, they are called in. They're brought in Team Sonic to defeat him, and they find out him and evil Robotnik are using Robotnik to hatch up their nefarious plans. And also Kristen Ritter is there. I'm not a little confused on that one. I think a lot of this was a little better than I actually expected. I didn't expect an Akira slide on a building, and as someone who made a song and video about Akira slides, I never saw an Akira slide on a building like that. That was pretty awesome. Keanu Reeves seems to take this very seriously, to be totally honest. Like it's kind of funny. When I was a kid, everyone thought he was a bad actor, and I was like, I feel like he knows what he's doing. I know, like, anytime he's in a big animated sequel, he has to be riding a motorcycle. I actually sort of liked him more than Duke Kaboom. But some people are saying he's better than John Wick. I disagree, because John Wick is a physical performance. That's sort of a different thing. I thought he played off everyone very well. It's got various personalities in it. I even like how, like, the team, like Knuckles is, still LeBron and still silly, but not so goofy. He went into, like, dumbass Jason Momoa world. Idris Elba is very good at holding that. It feels like everyone who's a celebrity who does these things, like, really cares about them, which I like. I really love that. Jim Carrey is, I've commented before, especially in the second one, that his performance is really strong because he's playing off essentially no one in the on screen is there physically with him, and he's a cartoon character, so he can play off of cartoon characters. It makes total sense to me, and I was like, he is built for this. And in this one, he's playing off of, like, there's whole scenes where he's playing off of himself and Sonic and Tails and Knuckles, all those guys are there. Like, nobody's there, it's just him. And he does it perfectly well. He reminds me of when you watch Robin Williams and stuff like Jumanji and Flubber and all of those things. I know those aren't the acclaimed performances from him, but if you watch them and you think about, like, what he actually adds to the scene, he brings a lot that the special effects aren't necessarily doing. He does a lot to communicate them, and I think the same thing with Jim Carrey in this. I know he gets disregarded as an actor a lot, depending on, what era or how people are feeling about him critically, but I will always think of him as he's a great actor, and I think he what he does in this is, like, he's really good, like, playing off himself. It's like he almost found, like, the greatest person to play off Jim Carrey is Jim Carrey, apparently, but he's really good at it, actually. Like, I would be sad. I know he keeps dying in these, but I'll be sad when Robotnik doesn't show up in one of these, because he does actually add such a presence to it, but he feels so at home with everyone. It like, I'm not trying to be, like, overly praised, but it doesn't feel like a Sonic the Hedgehog movie starring Jim Carrey. Like, the movie star, it feels like Jim Carrey, the actor, being Robotnik. So I think, even though it's a different version of Robotnik, I get that, whatever. But I mainly was like, I saw this with my kids. I went with another dad. We got to this cool theater in Brooklyn I'd never been to, with all this stuff, and, like, everyone who was there, a bunch of losers went and saw Mufasa, but the cool people who saw Sonic 3, they were all, like, very much there to be there. And I find this franchise very fascinating, in terms of, like, because my kids love it, or my kids are really into it. We watched the first two, we watched Knuckles. I put the Sonic Christmas special on Plex. After I reviewed it, I have to see it like 4 times something. But it's very good at being family friendly, but not abandoning what Sonic is. I kind of still wish it had been like the other Sonic, the Daily Sonic show for the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, or that, Ian Jones-Cordy would have control over the Sonic franchise. I think would be the greatest thing ever. But I've thought that before any of y'all thought that, and I'll think it after too. I do wish it was more cartoony. I wish there was more chili dogs and stuff. But I really like where this is right now. And like, with, like, even like when you go, they have a cut to, like, Adam Pally, and, like, everyone in the audience started laughing because they knew who he was. And I was like, this is cool. Family movies aren't supposed to be this good in the third movie. They're usually pretty bad in the sequel. I had my issues with certain parts of the second one, but I do feel like we're really building this interesting, unique franchise at this point, where we're going to see a poster and it's going to be all Sonic characters, and we'll be like, what the fuck is going on at this point? Like, how did we get here? Like, I can totally see, like, my dad or, like, somebody who's, like, not into these be like, what? There's a robot, and, like, who is that? And, like, what's going on? Like, but I sort of like that they're, like, so in that they're not coming up for air. They're, like, so into the Sonic thing. That I really love about it. I love that it's a Saturday morning cartoon and unabashedly about it. I actually like that more when we're being uber serious stuff. And, the few narrative things, like, work totally well with it. It feels like a well organized kind of family franchise that's very good at it. It's essentially not trying to be like a great movie or say any great themes or anything like that. And I'm not enough, I know it's based on Sonic Adventure 2 and like Shadow the Hedgehog. I keep seeing that that's a different game. I don't know those games. I like that they use the music in this. I wish Sonic would go more to the R&B of the first 3 games. I noticed some like the punk stuff, and I don't know enough about Sonic to really critique it too much, but I know these films, and I will say these are fun films to watch with my kids. I very much enjoy watching with them. I always have fun. I love Ben Schwartz. I also like how like Tails is like, I'm the gadget guy. Like Tails is just like, that's me. I'm Tails. I take, I'm cool with this, and I really like that everyone knew their place in this. Maybe that's because Neil Moritz, one of the producers, is very much known for Fast and Furious, but it very much feels like one of those well-worn, like you know everyone in the franchise, you love them in their little roles and everything like that, and I like that they bring that to the family film. But I really like Ben Schwartz is great as Sonic, Colin O'Shannessy as Tails. I know I'm glad they let a voice actor be a voice actor, but Idris Elba is great and Keanu Reeves is great. I mean, there's really nothing I dislike about this. If you want to see a family-friendly kind of big action Saturday morning thing, I think this is probably one of the best franchise out there at that. It's not going to be my top 10 list. It doesn't inspire me to make more movies or something like that, but that's not what it's meant to be. It's meant to play in the living room, on the TV that's behind this camera right now 400 times until Sonic 4 comes out, and then we'll do watch 1 and 2 and 3 again and all that stuff. So that's what it's made for. But you know what? It's really good at it. It fully knows it. It's probably I think it's the best Sonic movie so far, because it very much was a Sonic film, and I had fun with it. And maybe I'll regret this. Maybe I'll say, maybe I like Sonic 1 more. So it feels like this is, Sonic has to be on Earth, but everyone has accepted Sonic. The Tails continuity catches up with it, all that stuff. It's a wonderful little family fun video game movie. I think this is more so, I'd say if you're wondering what the future of video game movies is, I would look for this franchise in all seriousness, because I think the trends they're starting here are things that Mario and, if there's a Minecraft sequel or whatever else, it will, or Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff, I think they will be looking at this franchise very closely. I think this is more to do with what the actual future of video game movies is, where you have a great screenwriting team who also does a great podcast, The Greatest Movies Never Made. Jeff Fowler understands what he's doing. Like, creatively, I think this very much works, but I do think very much so that every video game franchise that happens after this will be looking at this, because this is not, feels like it's overly done by Sega with a ton of notes. It feels like it has its own little personality. And I think we will continue to see that through video game franchises, where we saw things like Warcraft fail, or Ratchet and Clank, or so many others, because they're bogged down by, the developer or the company that own the video game. And I think this has enough of its own personality while also being very faithful to Sonic and all that stuff. It works very perfectly in that. So I'm curious what the future of video game movies will be post this, but I think this gives you an eye into the future. When we get to Super Mario Bros. 3, I sort of think we'll see something a little closer to this than what we've seen previously. And I think in some ways it might be, the Blue Blur might be a bit of a trailblazer in that, but we'll see what happens there. But I think for right now, I think we just have a very good family-friendly Saturday morning cartoon Sonic movie, and that's kind of probably what we all wanted this franchise to be. So if you've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.